welcome everybody to the Lady Leaders series. Ashley and I love doing these webinars. We love getting the feedback, if things are helpful for sure. The topic we're going to be talking about, I have to admit, everyone, it's a little bit of maybe a softer topic, like a softer skill topic, a little more touchy-feely. But what I will say is, I just have such the coolest honor of getting to talk to a lot of doctors on a consistent basis. And it's a topic that, I was telling Mark and actually Jake too, that I was like, it's something I'm hearing in a lot of my calls. And I had my highest number of SOS calls this month, and a lot of it being about this. And so what we're going to talk about is, what do we do when we're starting to feel kind of the lows of our practice, pulling ourselves out and our team kind of out of that slump? Right now, some of the things I'm hearing, Ash, and I'll let you tell me too, is I'm just hearing a little bit more of I'm feeling a little bit unmotivated, kind of just blah. My team feels the same. I think people are starting to get a little more salty at work, maybe, or spicy. I don't know which one to use here, but just a little more seasoned at work. And like I said, I think I've just been hearing more of that. What about you, Ashley?
No, it's the same. I don't know if it's like, it's kind of as the seasons transition, right? But I feel like especially as summer winds down, because everyone's super motivated in summer and they're taking vacations. And now we're back into the, if we weren't dealing with our troubles beforehand, they're still there when you get back into it. So I'm hearing the exact same thing.
Yep. And so I think you were calling it like the summertime slump. And I'm like, I think it's such a multitude of things. I think you're not wrong. I think that's one of them. But, what I've been warning doctors is, and I'm not going to get too woo-woo, but a lot of times how we're feeling, we can accidentally be reflecting out to the team. So they may be feeling it from us.
Oh, not even just accidentally. Like like everything starts at the top and they feel it, man.
They feel it. And then, what I'm finding is sometimes our teams are there too. They're feeling kind of that slump. And so I'm telling doctors, a lot of times if you're feeling it, other people may be feeling it too, either themselves or they're feeling it from us. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is I think there's some things that we can be doing to even just start to recognize it either in ourselves or potentially in the team. But I do have to say, and I'm sure it goes without saying, obviously Ashley and I are not licensed psychologists, we're not here to probably give that kind of advice, but DSN has a really great resource that, I'll let you plug right now, but then we'll plug again in a bit. So.
Yeah, we did launch in May our partnership with Talkspace. And so we are able, through this year, through 2023 and into 2024 for the year, we're providing Talkspace to all of our members. And so that means that you do get you will get assigned a therapist. And then you have complete access to them virtually, and then you are meeting with them in person via Zoom at least once a month. If you need more sessions, it's super, super discounted too. Sometimes, therapy can be expensive. And you do get super discounted sessions, and then psychology as well, psychiatry as well. So if you are needing some type of medication in some capacity, you have access to those services too, which is, we launched it in May, but just still super proud to be able to offer that to our members. And so that's, just want to remind you guys all that that's an option that's out there that we're currently offering for you guys.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure to preface everything that we're saying that, what we're saying is helpful to some level, but if you need more help, it's there. But, as I'm talking to doctors, I think the reasons for this slump, reasons for feeling, the words can vary, like I said, disenchanted, despondent, overwhelmed, just kind of blah. I think some of the reasons that I'm hearing is, for yourself and your team, I think we need to not forget that the last couple of years really have been more trying than we're all used to. Whether you had been in practice for a long time, or God bless the people who got in practice during this, thinking this is kind of how it's always been, it's not. There's just quite a few different challenges that all of us are having, to work around. And that includes, for so many people, I'm finding they've been short-staffed forever. So they've been working with less people, trying to maintain the same things. And a lot of it is hitting right now. And what I will say is, like, we're one of those. We've been running short-staffed forever, you know. Um, I also say, you know, right now with the economy and things that are happening, don't forget, you know, our team members are hearing it everywhere on social media, and they're hearing the fears of the patient. We're hearing patients come in and not accept treatment as easily and readily. Cancellations are up right now. And so I think with less treatment on the books, you know, less or more cancellations, team members that maybe have been kind of overtaxed slightly or feeling kind of the weight of this for years, I think just right now, sometimes that's hitting. And it's a silly analogy. And I was talking to my dental assistant who's been with me for almost 10 years. And I was saying, I almost feel like, you know, how like you've heard those stories of people who like can lift up a car off of like a child with their strength for a while, and then they put it down and they can never do that again. I almost feel like some people, including some doctors, some team members who've been holding everything up, holding everything together, I almost feel like right now I can see the collective a little bit of like, oh, they're putting the car down and they're just so tired. And I think we just need to be aware of that. But you combine potentially, you know, short-staffed, more patients wanting in, higher cancellation, so trying to refill, less treatment on the books, potentially the doctor being slightly off. I'm just finding right now can be the time where we're all feeling it. And those are some of the reasons. I think, like I said, how it's showing up, first, doctors, will start with you. I think how it's showing up, it's important to start to recognize what it can be. Because I find that often we try to run away from the symptoms. We try to run away from it. We try to find a different thing. We try to watch some show or be on social media. And I warn doctors all the time that one of the best things we can do is at least just stop to recognize what's happening.
Yep.
Start to recognize the feelings that are going on. And the things that I'm hearing, and they're really simplistic, some of them, is brain fog, apathy. And I was writing them down as people were telling me, no motivation, just kind of a lack of joy in things that used to bring him joy. And I'm talking like simplistic things. One person was like, I'm moody. I'm just irritable and moody. And it's not this, I can remember this person telling me, and it's not this person. Feeling exhausted, feeling blah, no focus, just more blaming, complaining, and fighting than normal. And then wanting to use other vices more is one of the symptoms. And like I said, TV, but it can be even like, I'm the sugar and coffee person. I'm like, maybe if I just do more sugar or coffee, this will feel better. And the reason I say that is those same symptoms can show up in your team. And a lot of times what I'm hearing is, I've had this amazing DA for 10 years, and I'll use my own as an example. And all of a sudden, because I know her, I could just see it, the changes in her a little bit. I could just see kind of that she was feeling less motivated and more blah than normal, which was not my typical, like, that's not how she typically is. And so it helped be able to at least recognize it, because we were able to have a conversation. And I just pulled her in and I just said, hey, you know, I can see it, and I want to let you know it's normal. It's a season, but I'm also here for you. So truly, what do you see, you know, that I could do for support, even if it's just hear out what's going on? Instant crying, of course, because just so you know, doctors, male and female, that's a lot of times people's first response is, you know, crying. And I was able just to hear what was going on. And the reason I tell doctors this is, one, you've got to recognize it in yourself. You've got to be able to recognize these symptoms going on and be like, it's starting. Something's happening. I'm experiencing these symptoms. I feel it in my body. I'm just asking you to maybe take a second to stop and really think about what you're feeling. So naming it, feeling it, knowing what's going on, and recognize it may be going on in your team. So to be able to kind of spot some of those symptoms. What are your thoughts there, Ashlee?
No, I think that's one of the biggest, I love, you know, the recognizing it, like, just take notice, because you don't, like, the thing is, you know, people think, oh, if I notice it, then I'm gonna have to change it. But if you just notice it and just kind of sit with it for a minute, then you can understand it better. And then too, sometimes that's in these leadership roles as the owner, you know, it's it's about having a team, and it's not just the team that you work with. Like these are whole people. So, just like you said, just noticing something's off with this person. And that's all that they want sometimes too, is just someone else to notice, because then that allows them to do the same thing. It doesn't have to be we're pushing it down and we're ignoring these things, because it's gonna come up. And I am the most notorious crier. Ask all of our team. I cry all the time. But if I'm between, if I'm not between a 2 and a 7 on the emotional scale, I'm probably crying. But yeah, it's about taking notice first, and then allowing yourself, having that willingness to open up to your team, and allowing them to notice it within themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our natural reaction as doctors and leaders is we try to just keep doing what we've always done, hoping for different results. Grind harder, hustle harder, do more, push harder. And what's funny is I'm actually asking you to do the opposite. I'm asking you to stop and take a moment and know it's there, because the sooner you recognize it, because by the way, everybody else sees it in you too. We think we're hustling the heck out of it. You're not. It's probably going to get worse. You're going to stuff it down, and it's going to come out sideways somewhere when you don't want it to. So all I'm saying is, when you're feeling the blah, when you're feeling the lack of focus, when you're feeling all these things, you're using the vices, just take a moment to stop. Feel it, notice it, see that it's going on, because then we're going to kind of discuss too, what are things we can start doing first for yourself, but then with our team. The main thing that I've been telling everybody, and I know it goes without saying, but I'm surprised how many times when I tell coaching clients, I'm like, this is normal. This is an incredibly normal reaction. And they're like, well, but I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff. I'm supposed to be even more high performing. I'm supposed to be pushing even harder, and I can't right now. Mm-hmm. And one doctor, I wanted to hug her little face off, because she's also got 2 little kiddos. She's trying to run this business. She's trying to be there for her husband. She's trying to do all of this. She was feeling all these things. And I literally was like, you're already winning. You're already doing amazing. Feeling this right now is normal. I'm just inviting you to take a moment and just stop and just recognize it's there and know it's normal. So sometimes just even realizing that, I think, is super helpful for people. Anything before I move on, Ashlee?
Just that I agree with you. This is normal, and also and it's nothing is permanent too, right? So it's absolutely normal, and it also not permanent. 2 things.
Absolutely. Our friend Michelle Jorgensen, who we're going to have on later, she does a really beautiful thing about the seasons, like the seasons in personal life and the seasons in our business. And I'm always like, you may be going through a winter right now, and I'm going to let her do her thing here in a few webinars later, but
literally have a packet on my desk though. It's so funny.
she's amazing with this. So I can't wait for everybody. But this is a season, and we subscribe though this season as bad. I'm asking you to label it as something else, as exploratory, as like wellness season, something else, because really that's what your body's saying right now is we just need a moment to stop, pause, recognize it, and figure out what we need to do, which is a good thing. So we're going to rename it, know it's normal, and call it something else. Not it's a bad season, I'm in a bad spot. No, this is just a spot to recalibrate, to rethink, to start over. The other thing that I will say is recognizing to your team that this is normal is also important. In our team meetings, I really actually am always like, hey, is everybody else seeing, what I'm seeing on the news about inflation or whatever? Hey, tell me who that's worried. Who is that worrisome for? Is anybody else, like during COVID, I was like, who's really concerned about whatever? Sometimes I think we try to not say anything, and it makes it worse, when I think if instead we can just bring out, hey, is anybody else feeling this or seeing this? Giving your team that opportunity to be like, I'm seeing it, because they are, like I said, they're on social media. So they're getting mixed messages from outside in the world. And the message that I always tell doctors is, I want people to know, hey, A, I see it too. B, this is how I feel about it. And I understand and have such empathy for us, feeling like this right now. But C, here's what I'll tell you is, within these 4 walls, here's who we are and what we've got. We've got each other's back. This is who we are. And this is kind of where we're safe. We can't control what's going on out there, but ladies and gentlemen in this building, whichever office I'm in, this is what we've got. We've got each other. And I try really hard to make sure that I'm recognizing what they're feeling, what's going on in the world, how everybody might be in that blah moment. Say it for what it is, but never complain or groan, but just say, in these four walls, we've got each other. This is where we're going. This is what we can do to control, what we have control over, and we've got each other. So that's what I do with the whole normal when it comes to the team. And should I keep moving on, Ashlee? You tell me if.
Yeah. So to add to that too, with regards, I love that, you're kind of bringing in the team and say, hey, is anybody else feeling this? And then you even meant something I like to, that I have learned, as we're leading like the DSN team or, watching other just great examples, but there's so much power and vulnerability too. And the, just kind of respect and comfort you can grant your team by being vulnerable, which sounds scary sometimes, but it's really often that during our DSN team meetings, even somebody's like, okay, I have to be totally honest, like I'm having a really bad day. It's not, it's not just, we've kind of built this culture around like, hey, here's where I'm at, and here's where, what I can provide today. And sometimes I'm not 100% GSD, sometimes it, it is here. And that is more powerful than I'm just going to, muscle through this and act like nothing's wrong. But really, again, the team can sense something's wrong. And now, now I'm a cuss word, and, now I'm coming off as blunt and rude, when they're having understanding that, oh, it's just, kind of an off day in the situation. And we've empowered the team to do so too. Like, hey, I'm struggling today with these things. My kid had COVID, I'm exhausted. And then it's like, oh, well, how can I help you? I'm very proud of the culture we've created with our team, but there's just so much power in being vulnerable and sharing those moments with your team, I think too, that can help to benefit everyone.
Absolutely. Well, and some people have asked me like, well, like, do I have to sit up there and cry? Do I have to sit up? And I'm like, no, that's not it. But I think just saying, hey, I see it too.
Yeah.
Hey, I feel it too. I'm understanding. Or, hey, I have a day too. I literally told my assistant that. I was like, I feel you. I know, and I don't make it about me, but I'm just saying, I feel you. I have exactly had that same day, and I will have it again, or I'll have that same season again. So I don't think, for the doctors who are like, well, I don't want to sit up there and do all that.
Totally.
You don't have to be that person,
Right.
either.
It's not just a sharing circle. That's not what we have to do here either.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have to hold hands. We don't do any of that. We don't have to sing. So it's funny, as I was kind of looking up, but something here while you were talking, but like I said, I think if anything, when you're starting to see the signs, and I was so fortunate, I just had a couple calls today, and one doctor had an SOS call. She's seeing the signs in her team, and she was getting ready to have this big meeting, but things were getting really tense. And so I said, this is awesome. Let's sit, let's stop and rethink. Like, what do we need to say here before we just keep plowing forward, acting like nothing's wrong? So first, like we said, instead of pushing stuff down, it's stopping and taking that moment, recognizing that things are normal. But then I loved this. There's people who love quotes. I'm one of those people. And there's this Rumi quote that said, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself.
I love
and
it.
what I love is, right, sometimes we're like feeling so clever and on fire, we're like, we're going to change the whole world around us. Sometimes it's time to just be wise and recognize what the world is bringing to us right now. It's actually best to just stop and change ourselves from within. And like I said, I am not a psychologist, believe you me, but some of the things that I know have definitely helped when I talk to my own doctors in the practices and other doctors is everything we've said thus far, checking in and feeling it. And I said, where do you feel it first? It's going to be somewhere. You're going to feel it somewhere. Men, women, it doesn't matter. Women often say they feel it in their chest. I feel it. It's happening. And I tell people, once you start to get the feeling, stop and take that moment. And the first thing, whether you like, this is actually like rooted in science, but actually take 5 slow, deep breaths through your stomach. literally excuse yourself to go take a time out and take 5 deep breaths. It takes 30 seconds. I was on a phone call with somebody who was, right, having all the stuff. And I even said, I did all of this. And I said, I want to just take a moment. Let's just stop and take 5 deep breaths. And it was almost like annoying, right? Like, I don't have time for this. And I'm like, I promise you, this is science-based. After taking the deep breath, she's like, I feel completely, like, I feel so much better. Well, we all know that when you're breathing so shallow, you're building up all that, what, carbon dioxide and stuff. So it's actually making you think differently and think even worse. So I tell people, like, even if you don't want to do the deep breaths because you think it's all woo woo, it really is going to help you make better decisions when you walk out of your timeout. So I tell all my doctors before they go in and do an exam, a hygiene exam, I tell all my associate doctors, when you get up from that procedure and you're walking down the hall, you might be feeling it. I want you to just slowly walk, even though you want to race in there and be like, I'm here. I want you to actually do the opposite. I want you to take 3 slow, deep breaths down the hallway or the length of that hallway. Take another one before you walk in, grab the hygiene exam sheet, and then begin, because you're going to make better decisions just from breathing. Yeah. The power of just good deep breaths is amazing. And we all breathe so shallow all the time that I don't know about you, but especially when I'm talking or I'm speaking or I'm doing something, I'm like, whoa, I don't think I'm breathing. So I know it sounds woo-woo, but I promise you.
I don't think breathing is woo-woo, Summer. I think it's necessary and we need to
the 5 deep breaths, yes, they work. The other thing is, I would say is, much like that call that I had, was stop to think through what's happening differently right now. Is there anything happening differently? Is there happening anything different at work or at home? But first you have to stop to actually recognize what's going on. Then you actually say, what might be changing and going differently in my life? For this person, there was a lot of things going on, in her life that were leading her to get to this point. And she was trying to gun, like I said, as hard as she could for more, be better, grow more. And I'm like, so many things have changed. You're in a different season right now. And so I think stopping to give yourself the grace of figuring out that there may be just different situations going on, whether it be at home or at work. And they often combine, whether you're a man or a woman. Things that go on at home very much affect what's going on at work. So stopping to recognize that maybe if something's changed at home, it may be giving you that feeling actually at work. Anything else there?
I mean, and everything that you're talking about, like, applies to the team too, right? So that's, recognizing that, again, it's the same for everyone. So no,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and our teams probably need to breathe too. So, but yeah, I think after that, what I usually talk to doctors about, and yes, I do it with my team members too, is take a week or two. And so much of that's going to depend on if your schedule's really consistent or not, and see what is leading you closer to, calm or content, or what leads you towards that feeling that you started to label it as, whether it be anxiety or dread or whatever. And I don't think things have to be really complicated. And I'm not asking people to, make this time journal of every 15 minutes what's leading them to it. But I'm saying, as a whole, when you're looking at your day, start to recognize, and I tell doctors, is it certain procedures? Is it certain, admin tasks? What are the things that are bringing you? Maybe they bring you more peace or calm because you can do them, or you feel confident, or you feel comfortable. What are the things that are bringing you the anxiety and dread? If it's procedures, if it's conversations, what is it? Do that for home as well. The reason being is a lot of times at home, there's things that are leading us closer or further to either one of those sides, and they're giving that to us. And I think too, when you're looking at the things that bring you that calm, I said, often we're just missing that they're really small things. Like my list is really simplistic, and anybody who knows me really does know it's like getting to hang out with Ashlee in a hot tub at, the Four Seasons or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be big things. It can just be a porch swing or a book, or, if I get just a little time to go exercise or whatever it may be, I know for a fact that's going to bring me closer to that. But I also know the things that are going to bring me further from it. And the reason that's important is we sometimes fail to recognize that there's so much support right around us for those things. It's almost like because we don't stop and notice it's there, we don't recognize it as normal, we don't take it into account that maybe things have changed in our life. And now there's an imbalance of the things that used to bring us joy or contentment versus, home versus work. Things have changed. If we don't stop and do that, we're not even recognizing that there's an imbalance and there may be support right around us. And, I'm not going to, have you do a whole spiel on it, but like truly, a lot of times I find doctors, there's things you can do for support that would bring you so much relief in a lot of these feelings. If you're not doing the tasks constantly that are making you blah and feel bogged down, and you can give those to somebody, like a personal assistant or something like that, you may notice how much better you feel because with that time, you're doing the stuff that brings you closer to the calm and the joy, which might be exercise or going with a friend to the Four Seasons, or whatever it may be. You're just going to find the time to do it because you don't feel constricted, and that's what Ashlee does. That is her company. And I feel like I talk about it often, but there was no way to not talk about it when it came to this subject. So if you're finding that you're doing this little journaling, whatever you want to call it, even just a brief little write down of
Inventory. Yeah.
inventory. Thank you. That's a perfect word. Inventory of what brings me kind of peace versus what's leading closer to that feeling in my chest, both work and home. What are the things that maybe somebody else could potentially do just to free you up for a little more time to do the things that bring you joy? Go ahead, Ashlee.
No, obviously I'm super passionate about this. And I always, talk about when I do place assistance with, entrepreneurs and docs, like it's kind of like matchmaking because like, it's like, giving them a tool and a, control over these things, like you said, that are taking away from the calm and the, peace and those things that bring joy. And it doesn't even like, I'll get as, it doesn't even have to be hiring an assistant. It's even, learning to delegate things where there are resources in the form of like, you absolutely hate going grocery shopping, just pay the damn extra $100 and have it delivered like
Instacart.
like, and I understand not everyone has that benefit. I spoke with someone, they were like, oh my gosh, we're just in such a small town. I wish we could do that. I'm like, oh, I totally get you. But, take a look at the resources that you do have and delegate. Like I said, it's hiring someone to fix something instead of you thinking that you can do it yourself. It's, looking for ways and utilizing your resource because that, extra money that you might spend on that thing is going to give you more peace of mind instead of you taking on the task of doing it yourself. So yes, absolutely. Obviously, I'm an advocate for having an assistant of some sort, or even utilizing your team that you do have, like making sure workload is distributed evenly, that you're communicating before things build up. It's not, the 12th time that assistant did something wrong that you finally just exploded. It's cutting these things off ahead and communicating as they happen. Even though that might seem a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, it's better than the terrible explosion that is probably coming if you let it build up as well. So those are kind of two different things, but
Right. But point being, as you're going through this inventory list, you're going to find that there really will be things that could be delegated or paid for, or even such a small investment, like you said. I mean, Instacart to deliver your groceries instead. It takes 30 minutes to set that up on a laptop. But everybody's like, but I don't have time. But I'm like, sometimes you have to spend a little time to ultimately give yourself a ton of time later. But there's a lot of services like that. There's a lot of people looking for just a little bit of extra money to be able to do things like that, whether it be housekeepers. I was just talking to somebody who I'm like, that's your priority one right now, is you need somebody to do your laundry and just clean your house, because she was working 5 days a week and doing that all on the weekends for her whole family. And I was like, oh man, like we got to figure something out here. So yeah, I think there was no way to have this topic without saying, let's give yourself more time and bandwidth to truly do the things that can bring you closer to that feeling of calm and content and joy. So the other thing that I would say is we fail to often just create a schedule for those kind of things. And, we used to hear all the time, like scheduling for date night or scheduling for things like that. I'm like, I don't disagree. Like, I think when you have a busy family and a practice, I think creating a schedule that you share with your family, with your spouse, with whatever, and saying, okay, this is when mom or dad is going to exercise or go to the gym or whatever you end up doing, or um, I'm going to go truly, whatever brings you closer to joy. I go to the spa or I'm going to go get a massage. Honestly, just put that in the schedule. I had one of our clients actually go home and do the exercise with his wife. And I really did say, it was like, what if you two just have different expectations of what personal time looks like, or what getting closer to that feeling looks like? If you're both feeling it, but neither of you are saying what you need, maybe you both just need to figure out, as you do this inventory, what do you both need from that home part? So I think sometimes just putting that in the schedule and making it known for everybody, and then going and doing it, because that's what's going to actually make you ultimately feel better. I think that's so helpful. We don't want to create the schedule because we feel guilty almost. And I'm like, everybody knows the whole put the oxygen mask on yourself. But when it comes to getting yourself out of a slump for yourself or your team, we need them and we need you to do what it takes to build in the schedule the things that are going to make you feel better. Like, silly enough, every summer I ensure I have a good picnic table out behind our building, and they can go out there and eat in the sunshine. Because I know I'm always like, you always do better when you can have sunshine and fresh air. So I'm like, I specifically do that. I specifically have really good water brought into the office so that they can hydrate every day, all day. Because I know you're better, right? When you're hydrated, like, such a silly thing.
No, these are the
So
basics, like breathing, sunshine, water, like these are the basics. And when you're not getting them, like
yeah,
I get seasonal affective disorder. I get sad when that's why I live in Colorado, where we have so much sunshine, because I
yep.
don't do well in places where that's not an option.
You laugh, but actually, I have, for my two offices where there's no light coming in, I have those panels in
Yeah,
those rooms for that
perfect.
exact reason. Because I'm like, right, just scientifically, there's things that lead to more blah, despondency, just times
Yeah.
of, the year. And so I'm like, I want to do everything I can to either schedule or make the environment incredibly conducive for us doing what it's going to take to get us closer to that calm kind of
I
spot.
love
So,
that you have those
um,
pets. Amazing.
yep. They're actually on Amazon, everybody. They're not expensive. But
Fantastic.
I have two team members that actually, they told me when I noticed it in them last year, they were both like, I'm going to be honest, I have a little bit of a problem with that. So, with seasonal affective disorders. So,
Yeah.
the other thing that I would say is, I am a really big fan of, hey, listen, I get it when people are like, I can't do an hour-long morning routine. I already wake up at 5 a.m. Don't tell me to do all of this stuff, And I'm like, I get it. And I remember too, when I had little kids, I really couldn't always do it. But I am just a big fan of even giving yourself, if all you have, and I'm just saying 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes morning and night, right when you wake up and right when you go to bed, even just sometimes the practice of starting it with gratitude, ending it with gratitude, has once again scientifically proven to rewire your brain. And a lot of times I'm like, be careful that we're not making our gratitudes into complaints. Like, well, I'm grateful that that assistant wasn't more late. I'm grateful that,
I love
stuff like that. And I'm like, well, that's not really
that. That's
gratitude.
not what we're talking about.
But so I'm like, instead, like, really recognizing, and this is our team thing, we moved from gratitude to even abundance. What's already abundant in our lives that we just don't even recognize?
Mhm.
And so sometimes I think, even if all you have is a couple minutes, I say, like, your feet hit the floor when you're getting ready to get out of bed, you can make that conscious decision, just to say, gosh, I am grateful for this family or this person I sleep beside, or the bed that I just slept in, or the pillow that I just was on, or the fact that I'm going to go over and have clean water, whatever it may be, whatever you can think of, the team that you have, the car that you'll drive, the house that's over your, head right there, whatever it may be. And then ending that day with, find even one thing to appreciate about the day, truly appreciate, not once again, you know, the OM wasn't nearly as stinky or or grumpy or whatever. Something that you truly can be like, man, that procedure went really great. That patient was so happy. And the reason being is science has proven the state you fall asleep in is just going to help carry into the next day. So if we can just try to maybe start and end our days a little different. So I think there's things we can tactically do for ourselves, with our spouses, and with the team to just get ourselves in a better position to experience more of that kind of calm and peace. Um, because the thing that I tell everybody is, I think it's a really hard ask, in my opinion, to move from the slump, the despondency, the lack of focus, the lack of anything, and ask people to move to optimism and positivity. That's a really big jump. And asking that of our teams when they're there is also a big jump. So my experience with this is I used to do that. I'd be like, we got this. You're okay. We're okay. Everything's awesome. And that can be, when you're in the slump, can be a little bit difficult,
Right.
to be around. And I think it's just a big ask. And, we've all read the articles and heard the stuff about toxic positivity, but I think that's where it can eventually seemingly look like it's going towards for people. So I think, all I tell people is all we're looking for is to get to neutral. And that's the word I use. Let's just get to neutral. Like neutral is like the most amazing place to be. And when you're in this season, which is good, which is normal, which we're going to call something else that is positive, we're going to start doing some of the breathing and the water and the sunshine. We're going to take our inventory. We're going to do all that stuff. The whole thing is we're just trying to get ourselves back to neutral. And that's really the big ask, I think, for us is how do we get ourselves to that neutral place? Because when you're in neutral is when you can start making better decisions, analyzing things, having better, really good conversations. What happens is it starts all the way back in the beginning when we don't recognize what's going on. We shove it down, keep going. We come out sideways. It's so much harder to come back to neutral and clean up everything we may have just done. It's so much easier if you start to recognize it's happening sooner, it's happening in my team sooner, start doing some of these things. Let's just get us all back to baseline. And that was the call I had this morning even, was let's just get things to neutral, to where we're in a place where we can actually be rational instead of having this continue to be destructive. Let's just get to neutral so that we can make decisions to ultimately get us to constructive. We're not going to get to constructive if we're in the destructive phase right now. It's just too hard, I think.
Like I like just operating out of reaction.
Yes, for sure. And reactions never lead to the best things. I don't know about you. Those were all the times that I was like, what did I just do? Maybe just me. So yeah, I think, then you can start to reanalyze. And like what I've done with one doctor, I remember, was once we got back to neutral, which took a bit, it took her, several weeks, I think even maybe a month or two, to kind of feel like she was at least at the point where she did delegate some stuff out. She did have a better conversation with spouse. She did reanalyze a few things. She stopped expecting so much from herself. We could actually decide, are the goals you're shooting for still what you want to do right now? Let's reassess, because that's what this winter period's for. I love it. Like, let's just reassess and make sure this is all still making sense. But you can't do that when you're in that heightened phase, because all you think of is push, 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 or deflate, deflate, deflate. Everything's terrible. Everything's awful. And so, like I was saying here, like, I think misery really comes from trying to be so successful at something, getting there and realizing you never wanted to be there in the first place. I think there's a great quote that says all of that, but I see doctors do that all the time. They get to neutral and then all of a sudden they go, I don't know if this is what I actually want to be doing. I've had so many doctors change their mind on whether it be multiple practices or not doing multiple, whatever it may be, right? They just reassessed based on making decisions from that place versus a heightened state anywhere.
Totally.
Yeah. Anything else though with anything I've said?
It's just spot on that the reactionary, like you said, never gets you kind of, I think, the goal, and that grace and ability to reassess to allow yourself to reassess, like you said, if that is the goal. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I set this and now I have to do it. That's my problem, is because if I don't, then I failed. And if you
Right.
fail, then you're a failure. And
Yeah.
like these narratives that we create.
Mhm.
So, sometimes it's just like allowing yourself that grace of it's absolutely okay to reassess and maybe have a different goal. Or maybe that goal and the outcome just looks different than what you originally planned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. Like sometimes it's not even that it was a bad goal.
Mhm.
It just, now that you know more,
Yeah.
you recognize that maybe that goal is not going to serve you how you think. The result you're looking for isn't going to bring you any closer. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, you're gaining that in hopes of feeling some way, right? You think it's going to give you something, whether it be time freedom, money freedom. It's going to make you feel happy. It's going to make you feel something. So I'm like, reassess, because I had a doctor I was talking to who she was going to move from one practice to, there was an opportunity for a second practice, but her first practice wasn't under control at all. And I'm sitting here talking her through it. I'm like, well, what do you think that second practice is going to give you? She was in a, it took her a bit to get to the neutral stage, but once she was there, she was able to be like, well, I think it'll give me, more time or more money or something like that. And I was like, well, let's reassess, like, when is it going to give you more money? And are you willing to give up that amount of time, knowing that the more money may come years and years down the road? And so
Right.
once she got to neutral and she recognized, it's not that I'm just using multiple practices as a
No, sure.
example, because not that that's bad, but knowing that what she wanted was time, I think, flexibility and money flexibility, but she had her single practice that was still having a lot of issues. I was like, wait, let's not make that decision out of that phase. Let's go back to neutral. And once she thought about it, she literally just let me know. She's like, what was I thinking? She was like, I need to get this place totally figured out because I'm going to end up with less time, less money. And I'm like, totally, right? But you can't make good decisions when you're in that phase. Sometimes you just can't. So and like I said, I think if it's your team, the things that I see have gone really wrong for me is trying to be really positive around them, because if I'm positive, that should just rub off. And acting like it's not there, I think, is one thing. Just ignoring it altogether. And so, like I said, I prefer, sometimes it's just nothing and you can just notice it. Sometimes though, like I did just recently, I think being able to sit down with a team member when you're seeing it, putting your own stuff aside, not ever making this about us, as doctors, but I really do like to find a time where I can sit down, and I always know, like, I want to give them the space and flexibility to be able to actually have a conversation. So like, I try not to do it when I know they're going to have to go get a patient in 5 minutes, or let me pull you between rings on the phone,
Yeah.
like, because then they're going to say everything's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I always try to find a space where I can at least have a little bit of time, to just say, hey, I just noticed, this was going on, or I just noticed you seem different, or I just noticed maybe you're not as your normal self. Hey, tell me what's going on. Is there anything I can do to support you? And I think being able to ask them, hey, what's stressing you out? What's keeping you awake at night? And often what we find is how they're acting at work actually doesn't have anything to do with work.
Right.
A lot of their blah, a lot of the way they're acting is actually a result of something going on at home.
Okay.
So I think it's really important to try to find time, if you're noticing it, to be able to sit with them and kind of walk through some of it. And maybe if it's helpful, even walking through some of the things we just discussed, because your team, like you said, they want all the same things too. They just don't necessarily have the same tools or resources that we do available. So helping them schedule things on their calendar, make time for it, maybe give them a sunshine break, or hey, maybe you need a walk around the block, or whatever it may be. I have a team member, she does it every single day. So because she's like, that's what she does. She's like, I just need to use my lunch break to go walk around the block a couple times. I'm like,
Love it.
do it. I love it. But I think more than anything, and we've really said it, is like, I think the whole point is to listen without, I know we all know this, but listen without trying to solve it,
Yes.
and listen just to hear them. Because sometimes doctors then are like, well, let me buy this, take care of this. And I'm like, that's not necessarily the game we want to start playing.
Mhm.
Hence the fact I always tell people, like, the words I never use or I really work hard on is I don't even say, like, how can I help? I always just say, how do I support you with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Because the goal is not, let me take everything from your backpack that you just said, I'm going to put that in mine. That's not the goal. The goal is just to say, hey, I see that something's going on. I notice it and I care so much that I want to just know, is there anything I can do to support you through it? And when
Yeah.
they tell you the stuff, it's like, gosh, that must be really hard. I'm hearing that this is happening, repeating back, I'm hearing this is happening, this is happening. Is there anything we can support you with, here at work? One time, gosh, and this was maybe a year and a half ago, we found out that our billing lead's husband was super, super sick. And she wasn't telling anybody because she was just like, honestly, like, I just got to come to work and do my job. But it was a factor. And so I just said something. Well, all we did to help support, and it was so easy and it was such a great thing for the team, is I just put out a thing to have meals ready for her and her family. So that during this time, she just didn't have to think about it. And he wasn't in the hospital, but her husband just naturally has a lot of health issues and sometimes it can be worse. And this was a really bad period. And I know it sounds crazy, but just getting to hear, she didn't even ask for that support. But I was like, gosh, I think this could be really helpful. And I asked ahead of time, I did ask, would it be okay if we were able to bring you meals, or just bring them to work, put them in the fridge, and you can just take them home? So we all signed up on the list. We rotated times, and she had, 6 weeks or whatever meals provided for her and her family from our office, which let our office be able to kind of help during that time as well, during that kind of slump period. So I don't think it's necessarily taking everything from them or paying for all of it or buying them everything. I think instead sometimes it's just hearing where they're at, what's going on, and if there is something that makes sense to support them with. Um, I think that's the goal. We're not here to enable, but we don't want to act like it's not happening either. So
Totally.
yeah. Anything on that, Ash?
No, I was laughing because and I put this like 2 years ago, so I'm still improving, but I'm laughing because I have this sticky note on my desk that says listen more. And because it was something like, it's like, it's not solving, it's not, and it's just a really huge tool, and it's something that I think we can all be a reminder, reminded about. It's sometimes people, like you said, just want to be heard, just want to feel seen, sometimes just want to get off their chest, like, just so they're not literally carrying that anymore and somebody else just knows about it. That can just make such a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So I was just laughing because you're like, just listen. And I'm like, yeah, I have to remind myself,
Me too. Me too. Because we go into fix it mode. And then, especially as dentist, oh man, how do I fix this? I want to make it better for you. That is, oh my gosh, I'm queen of that. Anybody who knows me. Um, but what I will say too is the reason I think so much of this is important with our team is it's definitely a general census that I'm hearing right now. Is there's a lot of team right now that are feeling some level of this. The reason I think it's important to see it's happening and really make a concerted effort to, as you're seeing it, potentially just have a quick check-in with them, a talk with them when they have the space, is when we ignore it, what can happen is team members often, I find, especially sometimes the really younger ones, they can't link necessarily how they're feeling to it not being necessarily work involved. They literally just are like, I'm uncomfortable, I feel blah, I feel like this, I'm going to go look for something else. That's just their natural response. Well, we know after we've been just in the working environment forever, you'll be doing that forever if that's the mentality. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do, and I'm not saying we're going to change minds, but sometimes it's sitting down and helping them recognize. So what I'm hearing is you're feeling like this, you're unchallenged, or you're, feeling blah because of whatever, or this is what's happening at home that's leading to things here at work. Once you hear it, sometimes you can actually avert people quitting, people having wandering eyes, things like that, just because they're like, oh, okay, you hear me, you're giving me resources, you're understanding what's it, because a lot of times they'll just say, oh, I'm just going to go here because I need more money.
Mhm.
Money, by the way, I've decided is everybody's first response when they don't know what to say, because
Right.
nobody stops and actually assesses how they really feel or what's really going on. So the quickest thing to say is money. And for me, what I'm thinking is, well, we all know, and this was my whole summit presentation was like, that's not necessarily it. People are actually looking for, yes, a great salary, but they're also looking for growth opportunities and to be appreciated and to be
Yeah, right.
recognized.
Yep.
So if we're actually catching sometimes when our great team members or even good team members have gotten to this, I'd rather pull them in faster than, sooner than later to be able to say, hey, tell me what's going on here. And a lot of times they'll be like, no, no, I'm fine. I'm like, no, I care. And sometimes you have to ask those more probing questions of what's keeping you up at night. What gets
Mhm.
you out of bed and gets you actually excited right now? Like sometimes you have to give them questions to have them start opening up and answering, but a lot of times you can lead them to opportunities in your organization or ways to make more money that they just didn't know about. But if we don't do it, they'll just be like, I just took another job somewhere else because it pays more. Not
Yeah.
to say that everything I'm saying is the reason, why they leave, who knows? But sometimes you can avert these kind of things just by noticing, sitting and having these conversations and helping them process what's going on.
I
you know,
love you put in these notes here too. One of the questions is, what do you do to take care of yourself?
Mhm.
Like that's a simple question, but a way to ask, that isn't, it's personal, but it just allows for so many directions that you can go from there, and in understanding of, what is truly going on.
Because a lot of times people are like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, what do you do to like take care of your mind or your body or, what do you do? And then sometimes they start to light up. Well,
Mhm.
I really love pickleball. I
Yeah.
actually really gotten into golf, or I love to go to the gym or whatever. That's when then there's opportunity to be like, well, tell me more about that. Tell me what that looks like. Tell me. So sometimes just via, like I said, the questions that you ask, you can get to what is actually going on inside
Mhm.
with these people. So I think if we do more of that, that's where we can create that sense of kind of a culture of love and safety. And the team recognizes often that we do notice, we do care, and not every time. I know there's doctors who are like, I've got 35 team members,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know. And by the way, I get it. It's not always me, just so you know. I literally have my, Debbie and Julie and Brittany looking out for the exact same thing. We make sure when we're onboarding at 30, 60, and 90, Julie takes every new hiree out to a lunch and says, at 30 days, let's go through all of this stuff. How are you feeling? What's going on? Because, right, we all have noticed that sometimes they start good and then they start to poop out. So we want to create that culture of love and safety right from the beginning, that somebody's looking out for them, somebody cares. And it only takes one person. It doesn't have to be you, doctor. It just has to be that person who can consistently connect, um, have that empathy, but not enable as well necessarily. So kind of just to recap, I think is, if you're feeling it right now, if you're feeling the blah, if you're feeling kind of the disconnect, it's really normal. I'm noticing right now. And there's lots of reasons I think people are having it. And I do want to say it's been tough. It's been a tough season for a lot of doctors with everything. So I think, it's normal. I think recognizing if you're in it, recategorizing it as good, healthy, normal, and a time to reassess. So stopping to kind of actually reassess where we're at. And if we're heightened, if we know we're in those kind of highs or lows, emotions wise, first within ourselves, tons of stuff that we can do. Um, Breathing, really good deep breaths when you start to feel it. Notice where it is, notice the feelings, take the deep breaths. I love 5 slow, deep breaths through my stomach. Water, sunshine, take an inventory. What are the activities both at work and at home? What are the things that bring you closer to even neutral or content or peace versus the ones that give you that feeling wherever it may be in your chest or wherever? Um, and start to have that same conversation with spouse and things like that at home. Recognize in that inventory, where you're at with both, and has something changed? Has something changed that now you do need to reassess? Hence the factor in this moment where, you know, you're getting this chance to kind of stop, just be still just a little bit to reassess. And then actually, schedule the things into your schedule that can bring you closer to those neutral content moments, and maybe utilize all the support that actually really is around you to start creating more space for that. Get rid of the stuff that leaves you anxious or overwhelmed or things like that, as much as you can delegate out, so that you do have more of that bandwidth to get you closer to the good stuff. And I think all of this applies once again to the team, noticing it, giving them the tools, recognizing it, and see how you can, help and be support as well. Anything though else, Ashlee, that we can think of that might be helpful? And then don't forget, DSN has amazing resources that, if this isn't necessarily, if you try to be intentional with some of this and it's not getting you there, there's some really great resources to help as well.
For sure. Yeah. Just to circle that back again. Yeah. If this is a great place to start, but sometimes it's deeper. And, we do have access to Talkspace and with psychiatry, as well as psychology and, therapy support. So definitely something to take advantage of, if you're feeling lost, or if you have no idea, or if you're like, oh, like, I don't know if that would be like, you have literally nothing to lose to try it. It could be the right fit, and they'll switch you around too and move you to a therapist that you like and you connect with and you feel comfortable with until you're comfortable. So definitely take advantage of those resources. I guess I just want to thank you, Summer. This is, like you said, it's kind of a fluffier topic, right? This isn't as, tactical, and here's how we do our systems and here's how we're lining our supplies. This is those things that don't necessarily get discussed all that often, but are super important, and the things that we push down and think that, they're not a priority because it's not as blatant and as obvious sometimes. So I just kind of want to thank you too for taking notice as you're having these calls, that you're noticing that this is what some of our members are struggling with, and then you still brought some actionable strategies and tactical ways to handle this. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my pleasure. Like I said, I always love feeling like before DSN and before all of that, there was no place to recognize that this was normal, and when everybody's like so hyped up on production or collections or overhead or whatever, and you're like, I can barely make myself go to work, or I'm just feeling so over it right now, or just so blah. It's nice to know, I'm here to say we really do all go through it. There really are things to help you get through it. And I love that we have DSN and DSI, we have podcasts and the resources to know, truly, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, yeah, you're not alone. And there's so many resources around you. So I so hope that it helped somebody just to hear those few things. And yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity. So
awesome. Well, thank you again, Summer. Thank you for
yes.
everyone who stayed with us here in Zoom. We had quite a few of you guys. So thanks for being on here with us and inside of DSN. And yeah, anything else to wrap up there, Summer?
No, we will see you next, September. Yes.
Woo, September.
Oh,
Awesome.
it's almost Christmas time. It's almost the holidays. See?
I know. Time flies. Awesome. Thank you again, Summer. And we'll see you guys next month.